to Deep Sleep Stories. If these stories have helped you through restless nights, please leave a review. Reviews are what help this podcast grow, reach more listeners, and stay alive. Without them, even something meaningful can slowly disappear. So if this show has brought you comfort, that small act truly helps keep it going. Now, settle in, and let's begin.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories. Tonight we will follow a handful of paper boats as they drift along a quiet waterway and little by little find their way to Dreamland. Settle into whatever position feels kindest to your body. Let your shoulders loosen as if a soft hand has brushed them with warmth. Let your jaw unclench. Let your tongue rest gently. Notice the simple support beneath you, the steady holding of mattress, pillow, blanket, air. You can allow the room around you to fade into the background. The edges of the day can blur as though they are painted in watercolors and left in a light rain. Nothing needs solving now, nothing needs finishing. There is only this moment and the gentle invitation to rest. Take a slow breath in as though you are smelling something comforting. Clean cotton, warm tea, the faint sweetness of night air through a barely opened window, and then let the breath out, long and unhurried. Like a sigh you don't have to explain. Again, breathe in, letting your lungs fill in a calm, easy way. And breathe out, letting any tightness melt down and away, as if it can simply slide off you and sink into the earth. As your breathing finds its own slow rhythm, imagine a place made for quiet. A small town at the edge of a river, where lamps glow behind curtains, where the streets are softly hushed, where the night is friendly and patient. In that town, there is a narrow stream that carries little messages, folded and floating toward a realm that welcomes every tired heart. You don't need to do anything but listen. You don't even need to hold on to every word. If you drift, that's perfect. If thoughts come and go, let them pass like clouds in a wide, gentle sky. One more soft breath in and out. And now as the night deepens, the story begins. Would linger in the west, like a pale would linger in the west, like a pale ribbon, then fade as the lamps along the streets began to glow. Each lamp had a glass belly that made the light look honeyed, as if it had been warmed before being poured into the air. The town sat near water that knew the shapes of every pebble and every root, water that carried the sound of its own hush. A river moved at the town's edge, and from that river a smaller stream wandered inward, threading between gardens and underfoot bridges, slipping beside old stone walls and clusters of ferns. The stream's voice was quiet, but it was always saying something soothing. It seemed to speak in a language made of ripples and reflected stars. Windows were full of paper, sheets stacked. Windows were full of paper, sheets stacked like snowdrifts, rolls tied with twine, pages pressed between boards to keep them flat and true. In the warm light, the paper looked alive with possibility. The shop belonged to a paper maker and bookbinder named Elowen. Her hands were the kind of hands that knew how to be gentle and sure at the same time. that could coax a crease into the perfect place, hands that could smooth a page until it lay calm and ready. Elowen loved the quiet tasks. She loved the feel of paper beneath her fingertips, the soft rasp as she folded it, the tender snap of a crisp edge being born. She loved the sense of the shop, a hint of starch, a whisper of glue, the clean mineral smell of ink, and always, faintly, the river's night breath, drifting in whenever the door opened. Every evening, when the town began to settle and the air cooled into velvet, Elowen would close the shop. She would sweep the floor in slow arcs as though she were drawing gentle circles to gather the day and place it away. She would cover the stacks of paper with cloth to protect them from dust, and she would dim the lamps until only a soft glow remained. Then she would take a small bundle from a shelf behind the counter. It was tied with a ribbon that had faded from deep blue to something like moonlight. Inside the bundle were sheets of special paper she had made herself from river reeds and cotton scraps and petals that had fallen from the lilacs outside. The paper held a quiet shimmer, not shiny, but as though it remembered starlight. Elowen did not make many things with that paper. It was for a single purpose, one she performed with care, as if it were a lullaby set into motion. She would sit at the little table near the back window, where she could see the stream through the glass. Outside, the water would be dark and reflective, holding the lamps like floating lanterns. In the distance, you might hear a late wagon roll by, or a door close, or laughter soften into quiet. The whole town would begin to breathe in a slower way. Elowen would untie the ribbon, choose a sheet, and lay it in front of her. She would smooth it with her palm as if greeting it. Then she would fold. A corner to the center, a crease pressed with the edge of her thumb. Another corner, another crease. Each movement was unhurried, and each crease seemed to settle the air around her. The paper listened. The paper agreed. When she was finished, a small boat rested in her hands. Simple, delicate, steady. It looked like something a child might float in a puddle, and yet in Elowen's palms, it also looked like something meant to cross a distance that could not be measured on any map. She would make several boats, never too many, only enough to feel like a small fleet of wishes. As she worked, Elowen sometimes hummed. The tune was not quite a song, more like a thread of sound that drifted and curled and rested. The shop seemed to hum with her, softly, as if the wood and paper were remembering their own histories and finding them comforting. When the boats were ready, Elowen would lift them into a shallow basket lined with cloth. She would wrap a shawl around her shoulders and step outside, closing the shop door with a gentle click. The lane would be quiet, lit by the patient lamps, the lilacs dark and fragrant, the stones beneath her feet cool and steady. She would walk toward the stream. The stream at night was a ribbon of moving ink. It reflected the sky in broken pieces. Stars splintered into shimmering points. The moon stretched into a wavering path. The water was not fast. It knew how to take its time. It knew how to carry things without hurrying them. Elowen would kneel at the edge, where the bank dipped low and smooth stones made a kind of natural step. She would hold the basket close and watch the water for a moment, as though listening for permission. There was a feeling that the stream noticed her. Not like a person, not with eyes, but with the attentive awareness of something that has always been there. The water made a small, content sound against the stones. A night breeze moved the leaves overhead. Everything felt quietly aligned. Elowen would take the first paper boat and set it on the surface. At once, it floated, light as a breath, steady as a thought. It rocked once, twice, then found its balance. The stream accepted it as though it belonged. She would place another and another until the small fleet formed a line of pale shapes drifting in the dark. They caught the lamplight, and for a moment they seemed luminous, tiny vessels made of moon-pale petals. As they began to glide away, Elowen would watch them with a soft, satisfied calm. She did not wave, did not call. She simply witnessed as if that was the most important part, allowing the boats to go, trusting the water to carry them. Not everyone in town knew about Elowen's boats. A few did, of course. Some people had noticed, walking late, seeing a pale shape slip beneath a bridge. Some had followed the stream with their eyes and felt a sudden, inexplicable ease in their chest. Others had found, in the morning, a paper boat caught gently among reeds, still intact, its folds crisp, its presence oddly comforting. But the true path of the boats was not meant to be seen with waking eyes. It was not a path for daylight. The stream wandered beneath the town and then away toward the fields beyond. It widened, becoming a narrow river that ran along the edges of meadows. In the night, mist would gather above it, a soft breath hovering just above the surface. The boats moved through the mist like small thoughts moving through sleep. As they drifted, the world around them grew quieter. The sound of the town fell away, replaced by the subtle music of water and the whisper of reeds. The banks became less tidy, more natural, with grasses leaning in and wild flowers closing their faces for the night. Settling over your shoulders, the stream settling over your shoulders. The stream had known for a long time that people carried heavy things in their minds. It had learned patiently how to help. It carried the paper boats with care. Each boat held something unseen, not a letter, not a written message. The boats carried something softer, little bundles of unspoken thoughts, worries that needed somewhere to go, hopes too tender to hold tightly. They carried the quiet wish for rest. As the boats floated farther from town, they passed beneath a small stone arch where moss hung like a curtain. The water under the arch felt cooler, smoother, as if it had slipped into a deeper layer of night. The boats glided through, their pale sides catching a faint green glow from the moss. Beyond the arch, the river widened again and the sky opened above it. Here the stars looked closer, as if they were leaning in to watch. In that open stretch of water, something else began to happen. Something slow and subtle. The paper boat, still drifting, began to gather a faint light. It was not a light that would brighten the night or cast shadows. It was a soft radiance that made the boats appear slightly more present, slightly more real, as though they were becoming the truest version of themselves. They moved in a loose cluster, sometimes separating, sometimes drifting back together. The current guided them in gentle curves, as if the river were drawing lazy spirals in the darkness. On the bank, an owl watched from a branch, its feathers pale in the moonlight. It blinked slowly, unbothered. A hare, half hidden in the grass, paused and listened, then continued on, assured by the river's calm. The boats floated on. Farther along, the river met a place where the land dipped and formed a quiet pool. The pool was round and still, like a mirror set into the earth. The water there did not hurry, it lingered. It reflected the moon so clearly that it looked like a second sky. The paper boats entered the pool, and their movement slowed until they barely drifted at all. They hovered on the surface like pale petals, like folded lullabies. In the center of the pool, a single lily pad rested, larger than the others, with edges that curled upward slightly, as if it were holding a secret. Beside it, a pale flower closed for the night, its petals gathered. As the boats drifted closer, the lily pad shifted, just a little, making room. The pool seemed to welcome them into a gentle circle, and then, in the air above the water, a small sound began. It was the softest chime, like the faint ring of glass touched by a fingernail. It came from nowhere obvious, and yet it felt as though it had always been part of the pool's night song. The chime repeated, slow and soothing, like a heartbeat made of sound. With each chime, the boat's faint radiance grew a touch warmer. The light remained gentle, never bright, but it became more comforting, like a candle in a far room. The pool was a threshold. The river knew it, the night knew it, and the boats, though made of simple folds, seemed to know it too. On the far side of the pool, where the water narrowed again into a channel, there was a low curtain of willow branches. The willow leaned over the water, its leaves trailing like fine threads. In the dark, the willow looked like a doorway made of living lace. The channel beyond the willow was not part of the ordinary river anymore. It belonged to a quieter geography. When the boats began to move again, they did so with a new kind of ease. They slid toward the willow curtain as though drawn by something kind and familiar. The chime faded behind them, replaced by the hush of leaves brushing one another. One by one, the boats passed beneath the willow, and on the other side the air changed. It was still night, but it felt deeper, softer, more layered. The sky above looked like a blanket stitched with slow-moving constellations. The water beneath the boats glimmered faintly, as if it held dissolved starlight. The banks of this channel were lined with plants that did not exist in the waking world. There were reeds tipped with tiny lantern-like buds, glowing faintly, as though they carried their own warm breath inside. There were ferns that unfurled in slow, dreamy motions, as if they were stretching in sleep. There were small flowers that opened only at night, their petals releasing a scent like warm milk and honey in distant rain. The boats drifted through this gentle wonderland without surprise. In this place, the improbable was simply peaceful. Ahead, the channel curved, and a soft mist rose from the water. The mist was not cold or damp. It felt like a lullaby made visible, drifting in slow waves. It curled around the boats without weighing them down. In the mist, shapes moved, faint, blurred silhouettes that were more feeling than form. They were the shapes of dreams, not yet fully formed, drifting like fish beneath the surface of thought. A staircase that led nowhere and everywhere. A door that opened into a garden. A familiar face smiling in soft light. A field of tall grass moving like the sea. The boats passed through these drifting shapes, and the shapes gently rearranged themselves, as though the boats were stirring the dream mist into kinder patterns. The channel widened again, becoming a broad river of quiet light. Here, the water carried not only the boats, but also a sense of profound ease. The current was slow, untroubled. The surface reflected the sky, but the reflection was softened, as if someone had brushed it with velvet. Curled into cinnamon commas, birds tucked curled into cinnamon commas, birds tucked into feathered spheres, even deer resting with their legs folded neatly beneath them. The river did not disturb them. It moved with the gentleness of a mother walking through a sleeping house. The paper boats continued, their folds still crisp, their light still soft. Now and then a boat would tilt slightly as it rode a small ripple. When it did, a faint shimmer would lift from it and drift upward like a tiny thread of light. The shimmer would rise into the air and disappear, as if it had been absorbed by the night. Those threads were the worries letting go, the tensions unwinding, the tight thoughts loosening their grip. The river carried all of it without judgment. It carried the boats as if they were precious, but it also carried their unseen cargo as if it were ordinary, because in this place, it was ordinary to release what no longer needed to be held. Far ahead, the river led toward a horizon that looked like a soft curve of darkness, as though the world there was wrapped in a deeper blanket. Above that horizon, a glow hovered, faint, pearly, calm. It looked like dawn, but it did not brighten. It simply rested there like a promise. This was the edge of Dreamland. The river approached a shoreline that was not made of sand or stone, but of something like fine, pale paper. It looked soft and matte, as though it had been pressed from moonlight and quiet. The water lapped against it in tiny sighs. The boats neared the shore, and the glow above the horizon seemed to lean toward them. It did not pull, it invited. As the first boat touched the pale shoreline, it did not crumple or tear. Instead, it changed in the gentlest way. Its paper surface softened and became something like a petal, something like a feather. The boat remained a boat, and yet it also became more than paper. It became a vessel truly meant for dreams. One by one, the boats arrived. Each boat that reached the shore released a final shimmer, a warm, quiet exhale of light that drifted upward and joined the pearly glow above. The glow grew slightly fuller, slightly warmer, as though Dreamland itself was being nourished by these small offerings of release. Beyond the shoreline, the land of dreams spread out like a landscape painted in soft strokes. There were hills that looked like folded blankets, their slopes gentle and rounded. There were trees with leaves like pages, rustling with the sound of distant stories. There were pathways that shimmered faintly as if dusted with powdered moonlight. And in the midst of this landscape, there was a harbor. It was a quiet harbor, not busy with shoom or clatter, but calm and wide. The water there was still, reflecting the pearly glow above. Along the edges, there were little docks made of smooth, pale wood. Lanterns hung from posts, but their light was soft and steady, like the glow of fireflies held in glass. The paper boats, now transformed into dream vessels, drifted toward the harbor and nestled gently along the docks, as though they had always belonged there. Waiting at the harbor were the keepers of rest. They were not grand or imposing. They did not wear crowns or carry staffs. They were simply beings of quiet presence, made of soft light and patient calm. Their faces were kind but indistinct, as if they were meant to be recognized by feeling rather than by detail. They moved slowly, as though time itself respected their pace. Each keeper would approach a boat and place a hand near it, not touching, but close enough for warmth to be felt. The boat would respond with a faint glow like a satisfied sigh. Then the keeper would lift the boat, cradling it as gently as one might cradle a sleeping kitten, and carry it along the docks and into the land beyond. In Dreamland, the boats did not need water anymore. They could glide through air as easily as they had glided through the river. They floated beside the keepers, keeping pace in the softest way. The keepers carried the boats toward a place where many paths converged, paths made of gentle light, winding toward quiet destinations. Some paths led to fields where dream grass swayed in slow waves. Some led to forests where trees hummed in low, soothing chords. Some led to cozy cottages with warm windows and fireplaces that crackled without sound. Some led to mountaintops where the air was cool and clear and full of starlight. The keepers did not choose at random. They listened to the boat, to the quiet cargo it carried, to the shape of the rest that was needed. A boat that carried the lingering stress of a long day might be guided toward a cottage with soft quilts and a rocking chair that moved like a heartbeat. A boat that carried the ache of sadness might be brought to a meadow where gentle animals rested close, offering warmth without words. A boat filled with too many thoughts might be taken to a forest where the trees' page leaves whispered stories that soothed and slowed the mind. Every boat found the place that fit, and as each boat arrived at its destination, it would release its cargo fully. The last threads of worry would dissolve into the air like mist in morning. The last tight knots of thought would soften, unravel, and drift away. The boat itself would then change once more, becoming part of the dreamscape. A boat might become a small bed of moss beneath a tree. Another might become a pillow of petals. Another might fold itself into a tiny lantern and hang from a branch, glowing softly for someone who needed a little light in the dark. In this way, the paper boats were not only messengers, they were makers of comfort. Far back in the waking world, Elowen did not know every detail of what happened beyond the willow curtain. She did not need to. She only needed to trust the stream and the gentle magic that lived within it. Still, sometimes, on nights when the moon was especially bright, when the air felt unusually still, Elowen would sense something. A subtle warmth in her chest, as if a distant place had smiled. A hush in the world that felt deeper than usual. A sense that the boats had arrived safely. On one such night, after she had released her small fleet, Elowen lingered at the stream's edge a little longer than usual. The town behind her was quiet, the windows dark, the lamps steady. The lilacs overhead swayed slightly, releasing their sleepy fragrance. She watched the last boat drift beneath a nearby bridge, its pale shape briefly disappearing in shadow, then reappearing on the other side, still floating, still steady. Elowen's breath was slow. Her thoughts were soft. She felt as though she too might drift. A breeze moved across the water, and the stream's surface trembled with small ripples. The ripples carried reflections of lamp glow and moonlight, breaking them into shimmering pieces. In those pieces, Elowen thought she saw something. Just for a moment. Not an image exactly, more like a suggestion. A harbor made of pale wood, lanterns glowing softly, a sense of welcome. It was gone almost as soon as it appeared, but it left behind a feeling of deep reassurance, as though the world held hidden places designed for kindness. Elowen smiled, small and quiet, and rose to her feet. She gathered her empty basket and began to walk back along the lane. Her steps were unhurried. The stones beneath her boots felt cool and dependable. The night air wrapped around her like a shawl. In her shop, she would sleep later, in a small room above the paper stacks. The scent of paper and glue would cradle her. The river's hush would be a lullaby through the window. But even before she reached her door, the stream continued its work. The boats continued to drift, passing beneath arches and through mist, moving steadily toward the willow curtain and beyond. And as they traveled, the world felt more and more like a place where rest was not something to chase, but something that could simply arrive, softly, quietly, like a boat finding shore. The river in Dreamland, too, continued its patient flow. The keepers of rest moved along their paths. The dreamscape gently reshaped itself to offer comfort. Lanterns glowed, page leaves rustled, meadows swayed. Somewhere a traveler dreamed of floating down a river beneath a sky stitched with stars. Somewhere someone dreamed of a warm cottage where the tea never cooled and the fire never went out. Somewhere a mind that had been busy all day finally loosened, like a fist opening into a relaxed palm. The paper boats made their slow, kind deliveries, and the night, vast and gentle, held everything with ease. Now the river grows quieter still. The boats have found their harbor. The lanterns in Dreamland glow softly, then soften even more, as if they are dimming for sleep. The paths become smoother. The air becomes warmer. The sounds become fewer. In the distance, there is only the hush of water, the faint rustle of page leaves, the slow exhale of a resting world. Let your breathing be easy. In and out. Any remaining thoughts can float away like small paper boats, carried by a kind current. There is nothing to hold, nothing to do. Only rest, only quiet, only the gentle drift into sleep. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.